Hello, my name is Rick Houston, and welcome to the Scene Vault Podcast, your source for all things NASCAR history. Presented by Las Vegas Motor Speedway, America's racing showplace.
I told him I'd get him one day, so I passed a little gas inside that race car, and of course he strapped in, and he couldn't get out. So I got him. I got him back, you know. And I honestly believe in my heart, had he bought a King Air, he'd been alive today. Because that I don't think what happened would have happened in a King Air. And I get on the radio and I said, Dale, you okay? Talk to me, all right? He didn't say anything. So I asked him 2 or 3 times, Dale, you okay? Talk to me. Tell me, you okay? Talk to me. He didn't say anything. About the 3rd time I said it or something, he comes in and says, knock the breath out of me. I took my good wrench shirt off.
Did you really?
I took it off because I knew all them fans, a lot of them were getting a little irate. And I took it off and put it under my arm, and I had my T-shirt on underneath it. And when I got inside the track, I wanted to be sure I put it back on. But
the day NASCAR and all of us associated in any way with NASCAR forget its past, that's the day we don't have any future.
Hey, my name is Rick Houston, and welcome to another episode of the Scene Vault Podcast. Before we get started, I want to let you know that we try our very best here on the Scene Vault Podcast to provide the very best interview content possible. Now, in order to help us continue doing that, there are a couple of ways that you can provide your support. First, Patreon. It costs money to do this show. And in order to keep doing it, we need your support. That address is patreon.com/the Scene Vault Podcast. And you can also help us out by hitting that subscribe button here on YouTube. Hit that notification button here on YouTube. With that being said, enjoy the episode. Now, you were with RCR when Ricky Rudd won his first race.
yes,
And the team's first race.
yes.
What do you remember about that day?
Oh, gee, I remember it was a very exciting day, man. That was, RCR's very first win. Ricky Rudd's first win. Boy, everybody was excited. We celebrated that day, and it was just a great day, to see and be part of a first win. And then later on that fall, we won the second race for Ricky Rudd and RCR at Martinsville.
Yeah.
In Martinsville. So that was Ricky Rudd's and RCR's first 2 wins. So then right after that, 84, Earnhardt comes back to drive for Childress, brings Rainer with him. Budweiser leaves Billy Hagan, Terry Labonte team goes to Junior Johnson. So I suggest we take the Piedmont sponsorship down to Billy Hagan's team, which Bill Howard agreed, and we did. And Terry Labonte's driver. And Terry's a great guy. I mean, I got to work with Terry and Bobby over the years and all, and I used to have a list of drivers I spotted for. I mean, talking about all the series, the NASCAR modified series, and I started in the Cup series, but the Cup, modifieds, the truck, the old Busch series and all. I think I spotted for over 100 different drivers in different series over the years.
Wow.
Because if I was going to be at the track anyway, I always tried to pick up a deal on a Friday with a truck. It was a companion race. Do a truck on Friday and a Busch car on Saturday and a Cup car on Sunday, And so I was making pretty decent money, too. Of course, I was selling airplanes, to a lot of the drivers and team owners. And so it was a win-win situation kind of for me, So we did that. So we went with Terry in 84. And we run at Chevrolets and won the championship in 84.
Now, at what point in 1984 did you think we might win this championship?
Well, probably about halfway through the season. And, because Terry was very consistent. He was more in the top 5s just about every week. He didn't win but one race that year, if my memory serves me correctly, but, boy, he was consistent and very smooth driver. And even back then, I designed the paint scheme for that car, the Piedmont paint scheme for that car. I designed the scheme for Terry's uniform, his helmet, had his helmet painted. The tractor-trailer rig, done the design on it, had a Piedmont Boeing 727 on the side of it. And, boy, that thing looked good going down the highway, too, or parked at the racetrack. But he won the championship in 84. And back then, when we did it, they didn't give rings out. They gave belt buckles out. And for the team members, they did. I think the driver probably got a ring, but all the guys, and I still have that belt buckle, 1984 championship, and kind of proud of that. But I remember right there, we're going into the last race of the year, and I believe the last race was at Riverside, and Harry Gant was running second in points. And Harry and I became good friends, and I'll tell you some stories about Harry in a minute. but I remember before the race, I sat in Harry's rent-a-car out there, and me and him talked about 30 minutes before the race. And Harry was really, really uptight about this championship. He was driving for Hal Needham, and Travis Carr was crew chief. And Harry I've never seen Harry like that before in my life. He's usually a happy-go-lucky guy, but he was really uptight about this championship. Boy, he was wanting to win it, and he and I sat there and talked before that race, and I just told him, I said, well, Harry, it is what it is. I said, man, may the best man win. I said, good luck to you. If you win it, man, I'll be the first one to congratulate you. So ended up Terry won it, and that was a great year and a really proud moment in my life. I think the only other thing that was more exciting, was when we won the Daytona 500 with Dale Earnhardt in '98. But so Terry drove the car. I think 84, 85, 86, I believe it was.
Yeah. Well, money always seemed to be an issue with that team. Was that something that ever impacted you in any way, or being the pilot like you were you above all that? How did you like that question, Steve?
Yeah,
I worked on that one.
I was trying to ignore
it. Well, yeah, Billy Hagan, he wasn't the most funded team, I don't guess, at the time. I mean, going back to Childress, even in those days, I think probably Piedmont was the first major sponsorship for Childress that helped get Richard on his feet and going, And then I think it was a pretty good deal for Hagan, but I don't know what Budweiser was paying him before, but I think it was a decent deal at the time. It's not near the money it is today, but it did pretty good. And I remember Dale Inman was our crew chief the first year there, Dale Inman, and I have a lot of respect for Dale. And Steve Mill was there, and Pete Wright, and all these guys. Had Billy Seiler, Johnny Seiler, had a great group of guys, to say the least. And then Billy Aiken actually made me assistant team manager down there at Hagan Racing. Wayne King was the manager of the team, and he made me assistant team manager. Not that that meant anything, but the pay wasn't anymore. but I went out and had to go buy a van for the team to use, and a trailer to haul stuff around, stuff like that I would do. And
who was the Billy Hagan you knew?
Who was what?
Who was the Billy Hagan that you knew? What was he like? What was he really?
He I always got along great with Billy. He'd invite us down to his house when he had Concord. We'd go down there and have dinner with him. He came to my house before. He was dating this little girl named Judy that had a real Louisiana drawl on her accent, and he was really good. To me, he was, and I'm assuming he was to the rest of the guys. I never heard anything really bad about him. He at one time he made Pete Wright the crew chief down there, years long, and Dewey Livengood was there, the chief engine builder and all. And I remember one time he had a car, he went to Le Mans, run a 24-hour Le Mans. I think Dick Brooks went, and Gene Felton maybe, I believe it was. And then I remember we went one time with Terry and ran the 24 hours of Daytona in Camaro. Went down to that race to work that race. Boy, it was a long day, 24-hour Daytona. I can imagine what Le Mans France would have been, but Terry, if I'm right, I think Terry was first in his class and like 7th overall in that Camaro that year, and that was like 80. I don't know if that was 84, 85, somewhere in there. But yeah, but Billy was he was always super nice to all the guys, and we'd go out to dinner. He'd buy all the team dinner, when we go out when we was on the road. So I don't have anything bad that I recall about Billy.
Well, after his tenure with you and the team, was it a surprise for you to see Terry Labonte leave?
Yeah, it kind of was. I often thought that Billy maybe should have give Terry maybe 50% ownership or selling 50% ownership in the team, I think they would have done maybe better down the road in the future. Of course, Billy had his son Amos coming up too, and he was always there usually on the weekends with us. But yeah, it did surprise me. But then, Sterling came.
Yeah.
And we had Sterling a few years, and then we went to Australia first with Terry. We went to Australia and run that exhibition race over in Melbourne, Australia. And we won that race over there with Terry. And then coming back when Terry left and Sterling came, I went to Japan twice. First time we went over with Sterling.
Hideo.
Yeah, Hideo Fugiyama when I was with Travis. That's right. The second time I went with Earnhardt.
Yeah.
But Sterling. I remember Sterling and I went downtown while I was in Japan together. Where that was a trip with him. Sterling was pretty wild back in the day.
What was your best Sterling Marlin story?
Oh my gosh.
And don't hold back.
Well,
there are no filters on this show.
Sterling. I'll tell you one story. Sterling was really bad to pass gas in the rent-a-car. Back before motorhomes and all that, we'd all stay at the hotel, right? Well, we get in a rent-a-car going back to the hotel. Sterling been there. There'd be about 5 or 6 of us in this rent-a-car, and Sterling would pass some really bad gas. And boy, we just, everybody raised hell at him. So I remember we were at Talladega. I believe it was Talladega one year. August race, I guess it was, and it was hot. It was hot. And before the race, I always did the things inside the car before the race. Nut and bolt everything inside the car, check the radio and the fire extinguisher, and put the water jug in there and the bungee cord for the shifter and all this and the radios. And I helped buckle Sterling in, before I went to spotter stand back in them days. And it was a hot day. I mean, it was hot. And Sterling was all buckled in there and had him booked in, had his belt cinched tight and hooked his radio up and checking his radio. And so I had to pay him back inside this car. So I told him I'd get him one day, so I passed a little gas inside that race car. And of course, he strapped in. And he couldn't get out. So I got him. I got him back. So I guess that's one story I can tell about Sterling. But yeah, and I guess the other one I can tell. We were at Waldorf at the Winston Cup Awards back one year, and Budweiser had a suite up there. I think. Yeah, 6th, 8th floor, or whatever it was. And we went to that Budweiser party up there, and Junior and Flossie was there, and everybody was there in there, and had the window up there, and had a bowl of fruit over there on that table. And Sterling went over and picked up an apple, and looked down. He threw this apple out the window, like the 8th floor of the Waldorf Story. There was a van parked down there on the street, and that apple hit the top of that van. It went bam! It sounded like a firecracker going on. Well, he started laughing. His old laugh. He thought it was funny. So he took a couple more and started throwing them out, kept hitting that van with them apples. He looked out the window one time, the guy was standing there and had a police officer with him. They was pointing up there, looking up, and they knew who it was. So needless to say, they shut the window, turned the lights off, and shut the suite down, and we left. So that's another story about Sterling. So he's always doing crazy stuff, and he always put firecrackers in people's under them or dynamite. He used to take some sticks of dynamite and put it under their cars and the rental cars in the parking lot and stuff. Yeah, Sterling was a trip.
So dynamite, let's see. Sterling was around when J.D. Stacy was driving. We just broke that story.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll pin it on. Yeah, we'll pin J.D. Stacy's bomb on Sterling Marlin.
Yeah, he probably did. He probably did. But
Danny, were you flying the night of Alan Quicky's accident?
no, I wasn't flying that night. I was not.
Okay.
Alan, I knew Alan, knew him very well. Like I said, I'd sold a lot of airplanes, especially like King Airs to drivers back in the 80s and 90s, and that was the plane of choice back at the time. And then everybody started going to jets, and we started selling jets too. But I talked to Alan Wright frequently about trying to sell him a King Air, and I gave him all kind of information on it. And Alan was a very intelligent man, very studious, and he studied stuff. He didn't make just a decision on the drop of a hat, So he educated himself. And he came really, really close to buying a new King Air for me. And I think he won a championship that year. And part of his championship, Robert, what's his name on Hooters?
Brooks.
Robert Brooks on Hooters. He had a Maryland, which was a Maryland turboprop airplane, which we called it a Kmart King Air. You know, it wasn't quite as desirable. It didn't have quite performance. It had Garrett engines, not Pratt & Whitney, etc. I mean, it was a safe airplane. But so as part of his bonus of winning championship, Robert Brooks gave him use of that airplane for the next year. You know, so therefore, Alan had no need to buy one. He had free access to one. And I honestly believe in my heart, had he bought a King Air, he'd been alive today. Because that I don't think what happened would have happened in a King Air. Because Earnhardt had landed right in front of him in a King Air I had sold Earnhardt. And there was icing conditions that night, and I think one of the engines iced up. And I understand that the pilot actually shut down the wrong engine too after he iced up, and they of course crashed. And it was a tragedy. It really was.
Wow.
But yeah.
How long did it take you to get back to RCR? When did that start?
Okay, well, Terry left Hagan. We had Sterling for several years. Then John Andretti came as a teammate over there.
Yeah.
And I spotted for John Andretti in his very first NASCAR race. It was at Wilkesboro. And John was a great guy, too, but he hit everything with the pace car that day. So after that, I had an opportunity to go with Travis, with Smoking Joe, with Hutch Strickland the first year, then Jimmy Spencer. So then Craig Donnelly had been spotting for Dale Earnhardt at Childress. And Craig, he and his daddy run Miller Machine there, just up the street from Richard's shop there in Welcome. Well, Craig wanted to quit because his boys were growing up, and he was going to go-kart racing and spend more time with them. So that spot opened up. So talked to Richard, and he wanted me to come over. And, I hadn't owned Dale. I'd sold him airplanes and flown around before. And so that's when I started back at Childress. I think that was 96, I believe it was. And
now, were you flying and spotting at that time?
A lot of times. Yeah, a lot of times we'd ride on a team plane.
Okay.
They have a team plane, that haul 30 or 40 people or whatever. A lot of times I ride on a team, but a lot of times I flew too. I'd fly another airplane in the teams, for the team and stuff for Childress. And back in the day, I used to fly a lot of the Winston people around, T. Wayne and Miss Winston, a lot of tracks and all too. Back in the day. But I remember a long time ago, back before I worked for Childress and Earnhardt and all. This is even before Dale got married to Teresa, and Dale lived on the lake down there. Dale, he was having a big party one time at his house one Sunday, I think, and Wes B-Roth comes up and says, "Hey, Dale's having a party. Let's go out to Dale's party today." And Lake Norman Airport's just a hop, skip, and a jump from where Dale's airport. I said, "Hey, Carl, let's just fly down there." And I pretty much had access to airplanes, and I just say, roll this one out of the hangar, and I'll fly this one. So it wasn't, but 20-minute flight maybe down there. So we get to this Beechcraft Baron, little 20s Baron, and me and Wes fly on Lake Norman, and Dale's house is kind of back a little bit off the main channel waterway. And they're all out there. We see them, I circle around, see them. And I tell Wes, I said, watch this. I circle back out, and I come down the lake, about 50 feet over the water, heading right for Dale Earnhardt's dock, And boy, they see us coming, they're jumping off a dock to water, and then we pull it straight up in the air, we go over and land, and of course we go to the party, and then Dale's just over there, how Dale was. He just kind of give you hell about it. But, so that was the fun days. But, so I went back over at Childress after Travis, worked with Travis over, I think started in 96 now, yeah.
How long did it take for you and Dale to click as driver and spotter? What was that learning curve like?
Well, I remember Richard telling me, he said, "I'll tell you what now," I said, "you got to have some thick skin." And I'd known Dale before. I'd flown him before and stuff like that. And I kind of knew this, but Richard says, "You got to have some thick skin." He says, "The two people he cusses out the most is the guy who cleans the windshield and the spotter." So I said, "Well, yeah, okay, don't bother me." So anytime we got on the racetrack and he was under speed with that helmet on, if he said something derogatory to me, I just had to let it go in one ear and out the other, And it took a little while. But, it didn't take that long, but it took a little while. And, because the driver's got to get confidence and trust in the spotter, and the spotter's got to learn what the driver wants, and you don't know till you talk and trial and error, I should say. But so it took a while, but most of all, we got along pretty good most of the time, yeah.
What kind of information did he want from you?
Well, he wanted to know, if a car was, inside or outside or at his bumper or at his door, if it's 3 wide, 2 wide, if you clear high or clear low. I always called him down pit road, remind him his pit road speed, and same coming out. The crew chief would get him out of the box, and then I had him from the rest of the way around, and then always call the flag when it's coming to green or when the caution come out, and I always monitor NASCAR on my other ear, so if NASCAR was talking about throwing a caution or debris, I'd always give him that information. So I try to keep him pretty informed, and if a leader, if he was not running good, the leaders at start finish line now, and he might be coming into turn 2 or something. So I always kept him where the leader was, and so try to keep him informed as much as I could. So yeah.
Tell me a story about Dale that would surprise people.
Oh boy, let me think. He had a really good heart. He off the track, he could be intimidating to a lot of people, and I remember, at the racetrack a lot of times, he'd have a long day, and Dale kind of commanded the lounge up in the front of the hauler, where the TV was and the air conditioning was going on. A lot of guys wouldn't go up there and sit, I'd have a long day, and so I wouldn't, I just go up there and sit with him, and we'd talk, there was no problem. I didn't feel like I was invading his space, because it was the team hauler, So, but he had a good heart. I know that at Christmas time, the guys that went to the track, he'd give them a little Christmas bonus, depending on how we did. And he gave me a pretty nice one year, and most I'd ever gotten really, as far as the Christmas bonus. And then I remember when we won the Daytona 500 that year, Richard always had a Christmas party for the whole team at the end of the year. They used to have it at the Benton Convention Center downtown Winston-Salem. Served dinner to everybody, drinks to everybody, had a band playing, always had a name band playing. And you could get door prizes,
Yeah.
all kinds of, Snap-on tools. We give you a certificate for like $500 worth of tools, whatever you needed and stuff. And Lowe's was a sponsor that year too, and you get stuff from Lowe's, and they had a grand drawing where they gave you a brand new Chevrolet Monte Carlo to drive for a year, stuff like that. So it's a big thing. So when we won the Daytona 500, I got Bill Simpson to give me a helmet. I said, I want to give Dale something, but what do you give a man that's got everything? So I got him a helmet, and had got Spepco made me a decal put on top of it. It was all decaled up just like he was a good wrench and everything. It said 1998 Daytona 500 champion on it, and I got all the guys at the shop to sign it and give it to him, and I think he really appreciated that.
Wow.
But he could be tough, but he had a good heart. He done a lot of things for a lot of people that a lot of people don't know about. Yeah.
Well, Talladega in 1996, that very, very bad accident. What do you remember about it?
Oh yeah, he and Bill Elliott got together. I think coming up travel, they both crashed. Dale's upside down flipping, and all he stops down there, on the grass down there, kind of as you're heading toward turn 1. And man, I knew it was bad, because it looked awful. And I get on the radio and I said, Dale, you okay? Talk to me, all right? He didn't say anything. So I asked him 2 or 3 times, Dale, you okay? Talk to me. Tell me, you okay? Talk to me. He didn't say anything. About the 3rd time I said it or something, he comes up and says, knock the breath out of me. Knock the breath. So he gets out of the car, and they walk on the rim, and I see him holding his shoulder and all. But yeah, that was a scary day. Yeah, but sure was.
Now that pretty much kept him out of Indy, I think. I know he started it, did he?
Yeah, he started it. Mike Skinner got it.
Right.
Yeah, Skinner got the car, yeah.
Well, how bad did it hurt Dale just to get out of that
Oh,
car?
yeah.
I heard what he said.
Yeah, he hurt, he didn't want to get out of that car for sure, He didn't want nobody else driving that 3 car, That was his car, And that's back when teammates, everybody started starting 2-car teams now, and Dale never did like a teammate at all. And he and Skinner Skinner's a good driver too, and I know Mike, but both of them guys were hard hits, both of them. And if they hadn't been so hard, I think they could have won 2 or 3 Daytona 500s together had they worked together, you know. And Skinner helped Dale on that first 500 win, but Dale never did help Skinner, you know, either. But had them guys worked together, I think both of them could have won a couple of Daytona 500s, but they were both hard-headed.
Tell me about Watkins Glen, because he was not going to get out of that car. He qualified well and then ran the whole race. I guess he finished top 5, maybe 3rd, somewhere in there.
Yeah, gee whiz. I don't remember all the details exactly, but yeah, he was pretty good on road courses. I don't remember all the details from Watkins Glen. I do remember Watkins Glen, though, back in the day, you know, if Earnhardt didn't win the race, he's going to be the first one out of the racetrack. First one. I mean, he wouldn't even take his uniform off. He'd get in a rental car or whatever. Chris Williams would come down and have the mule and take him out. And a lot of times I'd ride up with him on the mule or something, too. But I do remember at Watkins one time was coming out in traffic there, and I got my fender in front of Earnhardt, you know, and so I had him, you know, just done to piss him off, you know, in a rental car. And he got on my bumper and all, and he started bumping me, and I was holding the brake. He pushed me all the way through the tunnel, and the tires just scalded on my car. He pushed me through the tunnel at Watkins coming out one time. And, boy, they used to be rough on rental cars. Richard and Dale, they used to bump each other in rental cars and tear them all to hell all the time. I think Avis even quit renting to them one time. Yeah, I don't remember all the details back then at Watkins Glen, but it's pretty good. I do remember I went to Sonoma, of course, out there. I think he had a hurt shoulder from Pocono, I believe, there. And Richard wasn't there. Richard was gone hunting in Africa, I believe, and he sat on a pole. I believe he sat on a pole and won the race out there that year at Sonoma.
Yeah. So 1997 fall to Arlington, Dale had that very infamous spell in the car where he was basically passed out. Had you seen him that morning? How did he seem to be feeling?
He, you know, I did see him, talk to him a little bit that morning. There was a girl, I think her name was Becky, and I think Bob Jeffries used to spot for Dale Jarrett married her. I think she might have been from Indiana, and she was a nurse or something in physical therapy. And I remember she used to come by and give him a massage a lot on race day morning, you know, to kind of loosen up his muscles and his shoulders and everything. And not that it had anything to do with it, but you know, they started that race that day, and I think she had gave him a massage that day. And then they dropped it green. He goes out there, you know, he runs into the wall, and I'm hollering at him in the pit, and Richard's hollering in the pit, and he keeps going, and finally get him on pit road, and they put Mike Dillon in the car. But I just don't know if this had anything to do with it. I just often wonder, though, when she gave him a massage, did she pinch a nerve or something, his neck or something? I don't know, you know. It maybe caused the blood flow to stop flowing as good to his head or something. I don't know. I just thought maybe that might have been a possibility, but yeah.
1998 Daytona. You got to tell us all about that race, especially the last few laps.
Oh yeah, that was exciting. That was one of the highlights of my racing career that day, winning the Daytona 500. You know, Dale had tried so many times to win it and came close so many times, but won everything but the 500. And man, you know, he kept running the low groove all the time. He had good pit stops all day long. All the guys did great on the pit stops. Had a good car that day, and I think it was Bobby Labonte was coming to him. They had the 2 best cars that day, I believe. Larry McReynolds was our crew chief, and I got a lot of respect for Larry McReynolds. He was a great crew chief because he used to work with Robert Gates too, and Robert and I were good friends. But everything happened so quick that day, and I just remember going to Victory Circle and everybody hooping and hollering and celebrating, you know. So yeah, it was just a highlight of everybody's career that day. And I think as you saw on TV, every team was excited for him. Yeah.
So did you have to tell him to remember to make that last lap?
Oh, yeah.
Caution?
Sure did, yeah. They threw the yellow and the caution at the same time. I said, don't let up. You know, you got to come back around. You got to finish the lap because I remember Mark Martin at Bristol, and I'm not taking that last lap. And so I want to make sure he didn't do the same thing, you know. So, yeah, sure did.
How long did it take for it to sink in that you had won the Daytona 500 with Dale Earnhardt?
Oh, I don't know. It didn't take long. It didn't take long because, I'm up on the roof on the spotter tower, and I'm the last one to get to victory circle, And it didn't take long. I was just very excited. I just want to get there as quick as I could to help celebrate with him, and congratulate Dale, too. So, yeah, it was a great day.
1999 Bristol night race. How are you going to help Dale turn your buddy Terry Labonte like that?
well, that's another story. Terry and I are still friends today. And Eddie Mason Cup used to be his spotter and flew his airplane for him, and he still works with Terry today. But, I remember going in turn 2 when he bumped her. I said, oh, my God, And I go back to Talladega when Jeff won it, and they were throwing beer cans over the fence at Jeff Gordon when he won Talladega that time. Well, they were doing the same thing at Bristol that night, throwing beer cans. And I had my good wrench uniform on and all, and I come off the roof there. And at that time, we were spotting over in turn 3, where the spotters were. I took my good wrench shirt off.
Did you really?
I took it off because I knew all them fans, a lot of them were getting a little irate. And I took it off and put it under my arm, and I had my T-shirt on underneath it. When I got inside the track, I want to be sure I put it back on, but and Terry's truck was parked right beside us in the garage here. And of course, after the celebration, we had to load, and they're all there. And man, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, boy, these guys are pissed at us, and they're right there beside us. and of course, most of them I knew and were good friends too. Yeah, that was a different feeling, a different night, but I guess you got to win them any way you can,
Did anybody say anything?
No, not really. Nobody said anything at all. Terry and none of the guys said anything at all. Not to me, anyway. I didn't hear any bad remarks from any of them.
2000 Talladega, Dale wins his last race. What was the view like from the spotter stand those last few laps?
It was I tell you, Talladega to me was one of the toughest tracks because, you're so far away and you have to use binoculars most of the time. You're running 3 and 4 wide, 20, 30 in a pack all the time. And I think on that last restart, we started like 18th. And he was coming up through the middle, boy, and Kenny Wallace, I think, was helping him, pushing him. And, boy, it's just, unbelievable the way he came up through the middle. People talk about him seeing air. I mean, he knew how to side draft, and I think that was a lot of it. And his skill on super speedways was better than most everybody else.
Yeah.
So, that was a exciting day. I was just so nervous I might call something wrong or call a bad shot, But I was on my toes that day, doing the best I could for him up through there. And he came up through there, and won that race. And that was his last win, too, yeah.
So how busy were you? I mean, were you constantly on the radio, or were you just telling him what you thought he needed to know?
I was pretty much constantly on the radio, pretty much. And, and when he got back to the lead, I was telling him, I said, man, you got them on their feet. All the fans were standing up on their feet, because everybody was excited. But, I was pretty much on the radio the whole time that day. I just trying to keep him informed of what was going on, to watch his mirror, and if somebody was looking low, to watch your mirror, and he was good. He's pretty good at blocking too. So, yeah, that was a great day.